What stirs in the hollows of a dead millennium? So begins the recovered fragment, etched in flayed parchment and sealed within a vault no mortal tongue was meant to open. It speaks of a shadow walking between wars, a voice returning to a galaxy already drowning in its own blood. The Imperium scribes believed it merely another curse whispered by dying stars, until the omens aligned, until the night itself seemed to kneel. For in the wake of the 13th Black Crusade, when worlds cracked and faith bled dry, a rumor spread like frost across forgotten catacombs. Talos Valcoran had risen once more. The prophet of the 8th Legion, the doomed visionary, the killer who dreamed of mercy or madness. And so the chronicle begins with dread coiling through the void, as though the universe remembers him too well. The void over Segualsa trembled first, not from invasion fleets nor warp storms, but from a cold pulse, a heartbeat that was not a heartbeat, echoing from the bones of the planet. The Night Lords who remained feral scavengers in its ruins felt their automatics glitch with static. Their helmets glowed with spectral runes they did not recognize. From the broken fortress monastery where Conrad Kurz once brooded over destiny, a pale wind blew upward, carrying with it the scent of old prophecies. It was said Talos had seen his own death. It was said he walked willingly into it. And yet, beneath the cracked moonlight of Segualsa, a silhouette stirred in the catacombs, as if recalling the weight of armor long abandoned. The surviving warbands gathered, curious yet terrified, their cruelty tempered by something unfamiliar, hesitation. For the 8th Legion does not fear the dead, they are the dead. But when the shadows themselves recoiled from a single figure ascending the catacomb steps, even they felt a fracture of unease. Talos's armor was scarred, blackened by ancient fire, the Hydra scar slashed across his chest now glowing faintly with warp-born frost. His eyes, once prophetic, now burned dimly like dying stars, and yet filled with impossible clarity. He spoke no greeting, offered no threat. He merely whispered, "The future lied." And in that moment, the warbands dropped to one knee, uncertain whether they bowed to a prophet returned, or to fate correcting a mistake. Rumors spread beyond the warp-torn borders of Nostraman space. Rogue traitors reported a Night Lord's vessel moving without engines, drifting yet purposeful, following an unseen current. Astropaths screamed in their sleep, clawing their eyes as visions of clawed wings tearing open the firmament burned behind their eyelids. Somewhere deep in the Segmentum Obscurus, an inquisitorial conclave reopened dossiers sealed since the heresy, their aged rosettes trembling in their hands. For if Talos lived, then the prophecies he carried, predictions etched from 1,000 nightmares, might live also. And among those prophecies was a line archivists had long feared to even whisper: "When the prophet returns, the night of the Imperium shall draw breath." Talos did not seek followers, yet they gathered. He visited warbands like a specter, speaking only a sentence or two, cryptic fragments that left hardened killers shaken. To one he asked, "Do you remember the sound of rain on Nostromo?" To another, "What justice left when even vengeance grows tired?" None understood him, yet all felt compelled to obey. As his influence grew, so too did the warp distort around him, subtly like a veil thinning. Demons approached but kept their distance, wary, curious, sensing in the prophet something that neither served nor defied them. Something that did not belong. Entire hive cities awoke to pitch-black skies, as though night had descended at midday. Vox relays crackled with recordings of a voice, distorted but unmistakably Astartes, asking the same chilling question: who decides the end? On worlds where the message played, mass hysteria followed. Pilgrims tore down statues of saints, whispering that darkness had come to judge their lies. Night Lords strike forces raided with newfound coordination, guided by dreams too vivid to ignore. Talos's visions returned, but twisted, no longer glimpses of doom, but fragments of shifting possibility. Fate, it seemed, was no longer a script. It was an open wound. Talos meditated in silence within the drifting vessel that carried him through the void. His memories unraveled like broken film reels, flashes of brotherhood, betrayal, fire. His own death replayed in impossible reverse, blood flowing skyward, time folding around him. He should not exist, yet here he was. A paradox walking. The skull of First Claw's chaplain hung at his belt, a reminder of war's cruel consistency. Yet for all his grim purpose, Talos felt a quiet dread beneath his sternum, something he had not felt in 10,000 years, the sense that he was being watched. Aboard the vessel, runes carved themselves into the hull, glowing faintly before burning away. Scripts and languages even demons refused to speak. And always they said the same thing: return what was stolen. The message was not aimed at Talos, but at something near him, hovering at the edge of perception. A presence that mimicked his shadow, yet was not his shadow. A reflection that lingered a moment too long. He began to sense the truth brewing in the warp. Someone, or something, had brought him back, not out of mercy or vengeance, but necessity. Across the galaxy, seers and librarians felt a spike in the skeins of fate. The threads tangled, knotting into a shape resembling a broken crown. Eldar farseers collapsed mid-divination, crying that the prophet had returned wrong, that his destiny was reversed, that the future now spiraled away from every path they had mapped. Even the Chaos Gods stirred with uneasy curiosity. None had summoned Talos, none controlled him. And that, more than anything, terrified them. For beings of infinity fear only one thing: unpredictability. The Night Lords, now united under his grim orbit, awaited prophecy, but Talos offered none. He simply looked at the stars with haunted resignation, as if searching for something he could not name. When asked why he had returned, he answered only, to finish the sentence. None knew what that meant. None dared ask again. Yet each felt a tightening in the warp, as though reality held its breath anticipating the final word in a prophecy older than the heresy itself. Then, without warning, Talos vanished. His fleet drifted, empty. His armor lay upon the command throne, hollow. Only one thing remained. A final vision burned into the deck plates. An image of two silhouettes. One was unmistakably Talos, the other blurred, distorted, almost identical, yet wrong in angles the eye refused to follow. A mirror imperfect. A twin not born but constructed. And below it, etched in a trembling hand, a final declaration. The prophet has returned. But so has the one who never lived. The chronicle ends here, not with revelation, but with the quiet shiver of a truth approaching on silent feet, and the sense that Talos Valcoran was never the beginning, but the warning. From the final breath of the first chronicle, the silence lingers, a vast, suffocating quiet, as though the galaxy itself mourns something it cannot yet name. The armor left upon the command throne still radiates the last trace of Talos's presence, a whisper of prophecy half fulfilled. And yet, in the shadow of his disappearance, something older than prophecy begins to stir. The Night Lords who wander the abandoned vessel sense it first, a chill that slides beneath ceramite and into bone, the kind of cold that remembers every sin ever carved into their legion's flesh. They whisper among themselves, voices thick with dread, for even monsters know when they are no longer alone. Talos had been a prophet, a curse, a reluctant guide. But whatever had taken his place was none of these things. It was expectation made manifest, the shadow waiting to inherit the prophecy he left unfinished. Beyond the vessel, across the scattered domains of dying empires, omens ripple outward. A Ministorum priest on Carthion Prime dreams of a warrior cloaked in night who bleeds light instead of blood, his face shifting between two forms, familiar, then wrong. He wakes screaming, clutching the purity seals that no longer feel pure. His doubts, once buried beneath layers of sanctioned zealotry, claw upward like corpses through grave soil. If the Emperor's light reveals all truths, why does it now reveal contradictions? And why does the priest feel a strange pity in the dream, as though the figure was doomed not by heresy, but by destiny itself. He prays harder, but every whispered litany only deepens the hollow in his chest. Meanwhile, aboard an inquisitorial black hole drifting in silent orbit above a dead world, 3 inquisitors gather in a chamber lit by a single candle. They examine the recovered etchings left where Talos vanished, particularly the blurred second silhouette. Each sees something different in its shifting form. To one, it resembles a cloned Astartes. To another, a warp apparition attempting mimicry. To the third, the one who never speaks loudly, it looks like a possibility that should have been sealed at birth. Their arguments grow sharp, their alliances thinner. For if Talos Valcoran did return twisted by a shadow, then the Imperium's doom is not in war, but in uncertainty. And uncertainty is the one enemy the Inquisition cannot burn out. Among the Night Lords, the absence of their prophet fractures belief. Some claim he ascended into the warp to battle the dead visions that plagued him. Others insist he fled from destiny's weight. A few mutter a darker thought, that he was replaced. These murmurs breed distrust even among the 8th Legion, who have never needed excuses to tear each other apart. Yet something restrains them, a feeling not unlike reverence or fear, or perhaps both. In the quiet hours, they glimpse flickers of Talos in peripheral vision, as though the ship still remembers him. But when they turn, the figure is always facing away, always slightly too tall, always lacking the scars their prophet carried like scripture. The shadow is learning. On the forge moon of Athane's rim, a tech priest decodes a machine song corrupted by warp static. Amid the distortion, he hears Talos's voice reciting coordinates corresponding not to a star, but to a void where a star should have been. The Mechanicus priest trembles. Stars do not vanish. They are devoured, erased, or rewritten. His servo skulls record the chant, but the moment he attempts to broadcast it to Mars, the Vox signal fractures into a scream of 2 voices merging into one. The tech priest, consumed by Forbidden's curiosity, locks himself in isolation, muttering that duality is a machine spirit's worst omen. He does not survive the next sunrise. In the shattered shrine world of Vathoris, pilgrims seeking signs of the emperors will gather at a cathedral split by bombardment. Amid the ruins, a child speaks in a voice not her own, describing a warrior in midnight armor standing at the threshold of reality, accompanied by a figure who shares his form, but not his soul. The faithful recoil. Prophecy through innocence is the most dangerous heresy, for it cannot be silenced without staining the altar with sin. The ecclesiarchy sends hunters to retrieve the child. By the time they arrive, she has vanished, leaving behind only a feather carved of obsidian. It vibrates softly, humming a song that resembles Talos's final words, "The one who never lived." Across the warp, demons whisper. They speak of a split in the skein, a twin thread winding around the prophet's legend. Some laugh, shrill and hungry, for twins are rare in destiny. Others retreat, uneasy, sensing in the second presence a void that cannot be tasted or touched. Even the greater entities watch warily. A being brought back without the god's consent is an aberration. A being that spawns an echo is a threat. They search for the echo, but fail to find its source, as though it exists outside choice, beyond origin, an accident carried on the breath of a dying universe. Within the drifting Night Lord's fleet, the doubts harden into factions. One group declares loyalty to Talos's memory alone, swearing to seek him no matter the cost. Another follows the writings burned into the deck plates, believing the blurred figure to be the true heir of the 8th Legion, born from prophecy rather than blood. The tension simmers into open conflict, bolters whispering treachery in the dark. But before blood can spill freely, the lights across the flagship die. Every lumen extinguished, every auspex blinded. And in the choking blackness, a voice speaks, familiar, beloved, feared. "Stop searching," it whispers. He is already here. Aboard a distant battle barge of the Black Templars, a chaplain falls to his knees mid-sermon. He has seen a vision of a warrior in midnight armor walking beside a reflection that breathes but casts no shadow. The chaplain's faith wavers, his certainty cracking. For the first time, he questions whether righteousness is defined by truth or by victory. His hesitation spreads like contagion throughout the ship, sowing doubt in brothers who have never known doubt's taste. Something is rewriting belief, subtly, insidiously. The chaplain begs the Emperor for clarity. None comes. Far above a nameless world, the drifting vessel that once bore Talos shudders. The runes carved by unseen hands ignite all at once, blazing with cold blue flame. A figure steps onto the bridge, armor identical to Talos's, bearing the same scars, yet the air around him feels wrong, hollow, incomplete. He touches the abandoned armor on the throne, and for a moment, reality trembles. Two identical shadows flicker against the wall. One moves. The other does not. The chronicle ends with a final, terrible moment. The figure turns, and his face is Talos's, but his eyes are empty, patient, waiting. And from the darkness behind him, another set of footsteps approaches. The two sets of footsteps echo through the void-warped bridge, each step a tremor rippling through the souls of those bound by blood, destiny, or delusion to the memory of Talos Valcoran. The figure wearing his face stands unmoving, yet the air bends around him like heat around a dying star. The second presence approaches with unsettling calm, as though it has walked this path 10,000 times before. Across the galaxy, 1,000 minds tremble without knowing why. Warriors who have never known fear feel something ancient coil inside them. Priests grasp their icons with whitening knuckles, praying their faith still has weight in a cosmos unraveling thread by fragile thread. For in that bridge of darkness, something foundational shifts quietly, inevitably like the cracking of the universe's first bone. On Segualsa's corpse world, a Night Lord sergeant awakens from a dream soaked in prophecy and blood. He sees Talos's face split in two, one half weeping, the other smiling. He remembers the prophet's voice pleading for a future that would never come. Yet now the dream twists. Talos stands beside a mirror image, arguing silently with himself, their shadows fighting while their bodies stand still. The sergeant rises from sleep trembling, knowing the dream was not a vision of the future, but a memory of something that never happened. A memory forced upon him. He kneels in the ruins of a once feared fortress, whispering a confession to a god he betrayed long ago. We are following the wrong one. But which? Inquisitor Valthrin stares at the hololithic projection of the twin silhouettes for the 100th time, tracing their outlines until her vision blurs. Her faith has been eroding since the day she first saw the blurred double faith, not in the Emperor, but in the idea of certainty. She opens her journal, hands trembling, and writes a sentence she never thought she would commit to parchment. The greatest danger to humanity is not ignorance, it is false prophecy. And yet, as she finishes the line, the hololith flickers. A third faint outline appears beside the twins, then vanishes as though ashamed of being seen. She steps back, breath stolen by dread. If there is a second Talos, who created the first? Aboard the drifting vessel, the Talos Echo moves with quiet purpose. His armor hums softly, as if whispering forgotten prayers. He touches the scar over his chest, and for a heartbeat, emotion floods his eyes, grief so vast it nearly shatters the illusion. Then it fades, replaced by cold poise. The second figure steps from the shadows, and the two face each other. Neither speaks, but their presence alone generates a psychic pressure that bends the deck plates. Something ancient stirs between them, an old lie unraveling. The ship itself groans, steel remembering truths it was never meant to hold. Across the warp, demons shriek as a rift tears open, not a portal, but a wound exposing a memory of creation. A fragment of the galaxy's birth screams into their minds, a legion not meant to exist, a primarch whose design was split into two imperfect drafts, one of flesh, one of idea. The demons recoil, terrified by the scent of something beyond chaos, something not bound by the warp's will. For prophecy is a chain, and they realize too late that one of the Talos echoes is a broken link, and the other a new chain entirely. In the shattered cathedral of Vathoris, the missing child reappears at dawn. Her eyes glow with a pale blue light, the color of a dying star stretched thin across the void. She speaks calmly, her voice carrying the cadence of ancient truth. The prophet was a question, not an answer. The clerics try to seize her, but she moves like a ghost, walking through their grasp as though they existed only in memory. She lays a hand upon the cracked altar, and it crumbles to dust. One of them is the path that should have been, she says. The other is the path that must not. Before they can respond, she dissolves into motes of dark light. Within the Night Lord's fleet, belief decays into open warfare. Brothers strike at brothers, carving accusations into armor and flesh alike. Some chant Talos's name as though invoking salvation. Others curse it as a lie. A warband breaches the flagship seeking truth and finds the bridge locked from the inside. Through the reinforced plasteel, they hear two identical voices arguing, not with rage, but with unbearable sorrow. Only fragments reach them. You were meant to die. You were meant to live. Fate chose poorly. We cannot both exist. Then silence, followed by a single gasp. A Black Templar's chaplain, racked by doubt, kneels before the ship's relicarium. The visions of the twin prophets have consumed him, gnawing at the edges of belief. He whispers a broken plea. If righteousness falters, what remains? In answer, the relic blade mounted above the altar begins to hum. The runes upon it shift, rearranging into new script, not High Gothic, not Nostraman, but something far older. He reads only the first line before collapsing in terror. The Emperor built more than suns. The tech priest who survived Athens' Rim transmits a final message before tearing out his own augmetic eyes. His voice shakes with mechanical static. Machine spirits remember the prototypes, he babbles. Every design began as two. One material, one theoretical. One forged, one imagined. He screams as though seeing something towering behind him. Talos Valcoran is not a resurrection. He is a blueprint. Back on the drifting vessel, the two Talos forms stand inches apart. One places a hand on the other's chest, feeling the heartbeat that should not exist. You are the prophecy, he murmurs. I am the correction, the other smiles, faint and sad. No, you are the lie they buried. I am the consequence, their gauntlets lock. Then the ship itself screams. Light erupts, neither warp nor real space. A blinding fusion of both. When it fades, only one Talos remains standing, though his eyes now shift between grief and fury, clarity and distortion, as though two minds hammer against the same skull. He whispers a final line, voice layered with two souls. I remember everything. And nothing agrees, and the galaxy shudders, for the prophet of the Night Lords has become something new. A being carved not by fate, but by contradiction. A singular heresy wearing a singular face. From the blinding aftermath on the drifting vessel, the lone Talos prophet, Echo, heresy stands unmoving as the light gutters into darkness. The ship groans beneath him, its metal bones shifting as though trying to decide which version of him it now serves. He exhales once, a fractured breath bearing two memories of one life. Outside the viewport, stars flicker like dying candles, some vanishing outright as if refusing to witness what he has become. Every prophecy he ever spoke tastes like ash now. Every oath he ever swore feels counterfeit. Yet duty, impossible and cruel, still claws at what remains of his soul. The silence presses against him, suffocating. A silence born not of peace but of the universe, holding its breath waiting to see which destiny he will choose and which he will murder. On Sezagualsa, a Night Lord's champion kneels in the ruins of a chapel once used to mock the faith of their victims. He carves the 8th Legion's winged skull into the cracked floor, but for the first time in centuries, his hands tremble. The news of the prophet's strange rebirth has reached him, but it carries no victory, only dread. "Our destiny dies with the truth," he whispers to the empty chapel. Lightning flickers in the polluted sky. For a moment he imagines he sees two shadows behind him, overlapping. He draws his blade but finds only silence. A silence that feels like judgment. He remembers the oaths he once made to a father who foresaw his own death, and knows with sick certainty that loyalty may have been the first lie they ever learned. Across the fractured Imperium, the ecclesiarchy is shaken by contradictions it refuses to name. Archbishop Zorath sits alone in his candlelit cell, surrounded by holy tomes that suddenly feel like stories written to comfort children. He replays the reports of the child prophet on the Thoris, her voice reverberating with doom. His faith has been his armor, yet now it cracks with every whispered memory. He touches his rosarius and wonders whether faith is worth anything when reality can rewrite itself. He thinks of the Emperor not as a god, but as a father betrayed by the very laws of creation. The Archbishop presses his forehead to the stone floor and murmurs, "If even the prophet's truth was forged, then what of ours?" His tears fall silently, and not even the candle flame dares to flicker. Inquisitor Valcoran stalks the edges of her sanity as the third silhouette continues to haunt her thoughts. She has not slept in 3 days, sustained only by stimulants and worsening fear. The howlith flickers again, showing a brief image of the two Talos forms merging, then tearing apart. She realizes with cold horror that the flaw was not in the prophet. It was in the universe. Something corrupted the blueprint that shaped his destiny. She whispers to her reflection, "What power could rewrite a soul?" The mirror vibrates. Hairline cracks crawl across the glass, forming symbols she has seen only in the oldest sealed archives, symbols that suggest the Emperor's gene labors once walked the line between creation and abomination. She draws her bolt pistol and fires into the mirror. Even shattered, the cracks still glow faintly. The Night Lord's civil war reaches its fever pitch. War bands clash in the flagship's corridors, lightning claws sparking against chainswords, brothers screaming prophecies of their chosen Talos. Blood slicks the walls, pools along the deck, and drips between the grates to the silent holds below. Yet amid the carnage, a strange stillness settles, an oppressive weight that pushes warriors to their knees. They hear a voice in their minds, quiet yet undeniable. "Stop." The violence ceases instantly. Fear not, loyalty binds them motionless. The air grows cold. Footsteps echo, slow and deliberate. And then the new Talos emerges from the shadows, eyes blazing with two truths that cannot coexist. Without raising a weapon, he commands the Legion to listen. Even those dying obey. His presence alone feels like fate remembering a mistake. On a distant shrine world, a squad of Sisters of Battle holds the line against an approaching heretic horde. But their canoness falters, for her visions have begun to distort. Where once she saw the Emperor's guiding flame, now she sees two flickering silhouettes walking beside it. One steady, one stuttering like a glitch in reality. She tightens her grip on her bolter, whispering, "Which one does the Emperor see?" A shell detonates nearby, throwing her to the ground, and for one breath, the battlefield goes silent. In that impossible stillness, she hears a whisper carried on burning air. Faith is a choice, not a truth. She rises, enraged and terrified, firing into the oncoming horde with renewed fury, not to defend her faith, but to drown out the doubt consuming her veins. In the warp, a demon prince howls as a new boundary forms where none existed. A domain of resistance of identity materializes like a scar in the immaterium. The twin souls of the prophet have created something that even the gods did not intend, a paradox that bleeds into the warp like venom. The demon prince claws at the shifting walls of this anomaly, only to find its essence suffused with a presence he cannot consume. The gods watch in uneasy silence. They recognize the scent of the one who never lived, and they hate it. For this anomaly is not chaos, nor is it mortal. It is a wound left by a creator who wanted perfection, but birthed contradiction instead. On a Mechanicus arc, an Archmagos deciphers ancient code recovered from pre-heresy archives. The data reveals failed iterations, attempts to produce beings who could exist simultaneously in physical and theoretical forms. The Emperor's handprint is embedded in the code. The Archmagos collapses, realization shattering his last vestige of rationality. The Emperor had not created primarchs, but templates. Templates that could echo, split, or rewrite themselves under certain conditions. His final transmission is a panicked shriek. The prophet is not the accident. The prophet is the error correction. Back aboard the drifting vessel, the new Talos touches the deck plates, feeling memories not his own. He sees First Claw dying. He sees himself dying. He sees another version living. He sees 1,000 timelines folding and buckling like steel under stress. His mind screams, but his voice remains calm. "I was not born," he whispers. "I was selected." Around him, reality warps not violently, but with the slow, inexorable bend of destiny adjusting to a new axis. The Night Lords kneel not out of reverence, but because their bodies cannot remain standing under the weight of the paradox. In the Black Templar's Relicarium, the chaplain gazes at the runes that revealed the Emperor's hidden sin. He prays for guidance, but the silence feels like abandonment. He slams his helmeted head against the altar, roaring, "What am I if truth is flawed?" A single candle extinguishes itself, and the room darkens. Something rustles behind him. He turns slowly, dread clutching his throat. Shadows crawl across the walls, forming a shape he recognizes. Talos's profile no, both profiles layered atop each other like a double exposure. The galaxy holds its breath. And then, silently, without warning, every astropath in the Imperium screams the same phrase before their minds burn out. The prophet is becoming, and somewhere in the dark, Talos reborn, rewritten, and unresolved opens his eyes with a revelation that will shatter everything that follows. The veil between fate and annihilation thinned as the storm finally broke. The choir ships above screamed in ruptured harmony, their hulls peeling under the first strokes of the enemy's celestial barrage. Below, the broken legions surged toward the sanctum where prophecy and betrayal had been inexorably dragging them. Shadows moved faster than light, blades moved faster than thought, and every heartbeat felt like a cannonade against the fragile shell of reality. The first clash was not steel, but conviction, faith colliding with doubt so violently that the air itself quivered. Then came the real fury, shattered masonry, ruptured armor, the red blossom of sacrifice writ across the hallowed stones. Voices rose in fractured cries, names, prayers, curses, all devoured by the maelstrom. And amid it all, a single oath, once broken, was reforged in the crucible of blood and ruin. The defenders surged through smoke torn open by detonations, their silhouettes lit by the burning city behind them, each stride fueled by remembrance of fallen brothers whose names had already dissolved into ash. At the heart of the sanctum, the traitor stood waiting, calm, almost serene, as if he had foreseen each footstep that brought his hunters closer. The storm of battle muted around him, as though time feared to touch him. When he raised his hand, the galaxy seemed to recoil. When he spoke, reality shuddered. The truth he revealed cut deeper than any blade. He had not betrayed out of ambition, but out of conviction twisted by visions no mortal mind could survive unbroken. His heresy was built on a truth too horrific to ignore, yet too dangerous to accept. And in that moment, the warriors who had come to kill him hesitated, their fury quaking beneath the weight of revelation. They answered that revelation with steel. The traitor's body moved like a specter, his blade trailing arcs of void light that tore the air itself. Each strike echoed with memories, promises once made, now warped into accusations. The clash was a storm within the storm, a duel so fierce that the burning world seemed to dim around it. One by one the loyal fell, not for lack of courage but for the sheer inevitability of destiny's cruel design. Sparks from clashing blades streaked across the sanctum like dying stars, and every impact was a fragment of history crumbling. Yet they fought on, because duty demanded obedience even unto annihilation. Because devotion, once chosen, leaves no path of retreat. And because somewhere in the heart of that chaos, redemption still flickered like a candle threatened by the breath of a god. When the champion stepped forward, the last still standing, the battlefield fell to a suffocating hush. Their armor was cracked, their visor fractured, their lifeblood pooling with each unsteady step. But their grip on the relic blade did not falter. The traitor smiled, not in mockery but in grief, as though this final confrontation was a tragedy he had always prayed to avoid. Their blades met, and the impact sounded like a cathedral collapsing. Again, again, again. The duel tore open the veil between time and memory, each strike unveiling fragments of the past. A shared oath sworn beneath the same banner, laughter on a distant world before the war, the moment their fates diverged forever. In the final exchange, the traitor whispered a truth meant only for the champion, a truth that shattered something deep within. And the champion struck. There was no triumph in the killing blow. The traitor fell as if surrendering to gravity alone, the light draining from his eyes like ink fading from parchment. He did not curse, nor plead, nor rage. He simply exhaled, as though relieved to finally relinquish a burden no one else could have borne. The relic blade trembled in the champion's grip, suddenly unbearably heavy. Around them, the sanctum groaned under the strain of collapsing energies, wards failing, heavens cracking. The air smelled of ozone, regret, and ancient secrets unbound. The champion knelt beside the dying traitor, hearing him speak the last fragments of a prophecy that was never meant to reach mortal ears. And as those words faded into silence, the galaxy seemed to realign itself around a single absence, a void where once a titan of fate had stood. The bombardment resumed with murderous precision, orbital fire washing over the sanctum in molten curtains. The champion staggered toward the exit, carrying not the traitor's body, but his final truth. A truth that could unmake empires have spoken aloud. Stone liquefied, pillars fell, and the heavens thundered. The champion looked back only once, witnessing the sanctum's collapse bury the corpse of their oldest friend and greatest enemy. Then they turned away, each step in agony, each breath a vow to survive long enough to decide whether the truth should be revealed or entombed forever. The sky bled fire, the earth trembled, and the champion walked through it as though carved from the very idea of defiance. Outside, the battlefield was a graveyard of ambitions. Smoking ruins stretched to the horizon, dotted with the still forms of those who had believed enough to die for something greater than themselves. Survivors moved like ghosts, tending to wounds too deep for medicine and too fresh for prayer. The champion descended into their midst, and the legion fell silent. They saw the exhaustion in their leader's eyes, the grief clinging to their movements like a second shadow. They did not ask what had happened inside the sanctum. Some truths were visible without being spoken. Some wounds needed no explanation. The champion lifted the relic blade, now cracked, flickering, and the legion bowed, not in triumph but in mourning. Night fell, bringing with it a silence that felt unnatural after the cacophony of war. Fires smoldered, shedding dull embers that drifted like lost souls across the ruins. In this stillness, the champion retreated to a shattered overlook, staring into the broken horizon as if searching for clarity in the ashes. The traitor's final prophecy replayed endlessly in their mind, fragments of warning, sacrifice, and a shadow rising beyond the stars. They wondered whether the traitor had truly fallen or had simply stepped into another path written by forces older than gods. Doubt gnawed at them. Fear lingered. But beneath it all, a resolve was forming, jagged and unyielding. The champion knew the galaxy would not remain unchanged. Something vast had shifted. Dawn came reluctantly, a pale light creeping across the battlefield like a cautious survivor. With it came the first reports from the outer fronts, warp anomalies blooming like wounds, Fragments of a new, terrible design forming at the galaxy's edge. The champion felt the prophecy stirring in those whispers. The traitor had not lied. The war they had just survived was not an ending but a prelude, a candle flickering before a coming storm that would swallow constellations. The Legion gathered behind their leader, awaiting orders, seeking direction in a galaxy that suddenly felt more fragile than ever. The champion sheathed the fractured relic blade and turned to face them, every word they spoke shaped by the weight of what was yet to come. The aftermath was not peace but a pause, a long trembling breath drawn by a wounded cosmos. Across the ruins, servitors collected the dead, etching their names into stone slabs as the first step toward memory. Chaplains led solemn rites, their voices low and cracked, weaving grief into a mantle the Legion would carry forward. The champion stood apart, watching the names grow, each one a blade driven deeper into their resolve. The traitor's face haunted the edges of their thoughts, not as an enemy, but as a warning. Devotion had its price. Betrayal had its echoes, and truth, once revealed, could not be unlearned. The champion tightened their gauntlets and turned away from the mourning. Duty called them forward. In the quiet of a rebuilt command chamber, the champion finally allowed themselves to speak the prophecy aloud, not to the Legion, but to the darkness. The words hung in the air like dust stirred from ancient tombs. A great shadow rising beyond the galactic rim, a hunger older than the warp itself, a choice that would break empires and bend the future. The champion felt each syllable settle upon them like a shroud. They understood now, the traitor had not betrayed the Imperium. He had tried, in the only broken way he knew, to save it. This realization carved open a new wound, one that no battlefield victory could ever cauterize. The champion closed their eyes and breathed a vow, a promise to face what was coming, no matter the cost. And so the galaxy waited, trembling on the edge of something unseen. Stars flickered, some dying without cause, others flaring with unnatural brilliance. Psychic storms whispered of a convergence approaching, a war yet unborn but already dreaded. The Legion prepared in silence, reforging armor, re-sanctifying relics, building pyres of oathfire to steel their spirits. The champion stood at their head, a lone figure caught between destiny and dread, bearing a truth no one else could shoulder. When the signal finally came, a tremor rippling through the void like a heartbeat of something colossal, the champion looked to the heavens and felt the shift. Something eternal had moved. Something vast had awakened. And though its meaning was still hidden, the galaxy would feel its consequences for ages yet unwritten. The storm had not yet begun, but its shadow already darkened every soul. The galaxy seemed to exhale after the tremor passed, as though some vast celestial lung had released a breath it had held for millennia. Where armies had once marched in thunderous cadence, only the soft hiss of drifting ash remained. Ruined cathedrals leaned like weary giants, their spires broken, their stained glass eyes darkened. Inside one such sanctuary, the champion stood alone beneath a fractured fresco of saints long forgotten. Dust glimmered like dying stars in the slanted light. They touched the cracked mural, feeling the memory of devotion etched into stone, and wondered if faith was a flame or a wound. Outside, the wind carried the distant echo of voices, names, oaths, pleas, fading into the great silence left behind by war. The champion bowed their head, not in prayer, but in mourning for an age that had ended without realizing it had been ending all along. The Legion gathered at dawn upon a field where no grass remained. Only the charred imprint of battle and the skeletal remains of war machines, half sunk into blackened soil. They formed ranks not out of necessity, but out of ritual, a final formation for a war that had stolen too much from each of them. The champion walked among them, a lone figure marked by scars that glowed faintly like runes beneath their armor. The broken relic blade hung at their side, wrapped in cloth so it would not reflect the rising sun. No words were spoken, none were needed. The silence between them was solemn, heavy with the memories of comrades who would never again see the dawn. Above, The sky bore faint cracks where the warp storms had bruised reality itself. The Legion looked up and understood. Even the heavens bled. When the last pyre burned low, the champion dismissed their warriors to rest. Alone, they remained by the smoking embers, staring into the remnants of flame as if searching for answers in the coiling smoke. The traitor's prophecy gnawed at them, its meaning too vast, too monstrous to confront fully. If what had been spoken in dying breath was true, then all this victory was merely a pause before an ending that dwarfed every previous apocalypse. They clenched their gauntlet into the ash, letting it sift between their fingers like the years slipping away. A distant bird, one of the few creatures that had survived the purging fire, gave a mournful cry. It felt out of place in the ruins, a reminder that life persisted even where hope had fled. The champion wondered if endurance itself was merely defiance disguised as instinct. The days that followed moved with the slow inevitability of a falling star. Reports from the outer watch fleets spoke of unease spreading across the void, faint distortions, strange harmonics echoing through the astropathic channels, distant systems flickering like candles threatened by a draft. The champion listened to each account in silence, the weight of command pressing like an ancient stone upon their shoulders. In the quiet moments, they revisited the relic blade, tracing the fissures that crawled along its once pure edge. Every crack told a story, battles fought, loyalty tested, truth endured. As they held it, the champion felt not the pride of victory, but the sorrow of survival. To live when so many had fallen felt less like fortune and more like an unanswered question. Why them? Why this moment? The universe, as always, offered no reply. In the rebuilt command sanctum, candles burned in long rows, their flames shivering like frightened souls. Scribes etched the final war chronicles, their quills scratching faintly beneath the vaulted ceilings. A remembrancer approached the champion, a quiet figure with ink-stained hands and eyes that held a lifetime of witnessing. They asked for a final statement, something to close the record of a conflict that had devoured worlds. The champion hesitated, struggling to condense an age of fire into a handful of mortal words. At last they spoke. Write only that we endured, not because we were strong, but because we refused to bow. The remembrancer bowed deeply and withdrew, understanding that the truest histories were written not in ink, but in the lingering ache of those who survived long enough to remember. Night fell again, blanketing the scarred world in a gentle darkness that felt almost merciful. The champion walked through the ruins alone, their footsteps echoing softly against broken stone. Statues shattered by orbital fire now lay in scattered pieces, their expressions frozen in agony or triumph. The champion paused before one such fallen figure, a warrior once hailed as a legend, now nothing more than fractured marble. They knelt beside it, brushing away dust from its lifeless eyes. "Is this what becomes of all our glories?" they whispered. "A memory too heavy to carry, a monument too fragile to last?" The wind passed through the ruins, carrying no answer. Yet in that silence, the champion felt the faint stir of understanding. Perhaps glory was not meant to endure. Only the choices behind it did. The warp storms began to recede, leaving the night sky clearer than it had been in years. Stars emerged one by one, like watchful spirits returning to their posts. The Legion, for the first time since the war's beginning, lifted their eyes in quiet awe. The champion joined them, standing at the edge of the crumbled citadel. The constellations seemed unfamiliar, shifted by cosmic violence, rearranged by forces indifferent to mortal suffering. Yet the beauty was undeniable, fragile, distant, eternal. It reminded the champion of something the traitor had said with his dying breath: "Even broken stars can guide." They pondered those words, realizing only now that prophecy was not certainty. It was possibility. And possibility, no matter how small, was enough to forge purpose from despair. At the edge of the battlefield, where scorched earth met the first sprouts of returning life, the champion found the remnants of a banner half buried in ash. Its colors were faded, its sigils nearly lost, but its fabric still clung stubbornly to the wind. They lifted it with reverence, feeling its weight, the weight of countless soldiers who had marched beneath it, bled beneath it, died beneath it. Holding the banner to their chest, the champion closed their eyes and allowed themselves a moment of grief that was both sharp and strangely peaceful. Banners, like memories, survived only when someone chose to carry them forward. The champion vowed quietly to bear this one not as a symbol of war, but as a reminder of those who had given everything. Life crept slowly back into the fractured world. Delicate flowers emerged between broken paving stones. Small animals nested in the shells of fallen war machines. The Legion began rebuilding, not out of command but out of instinct. Stacking stone, clearing rubble, planting seeds. The champion watched them from atop a shattered pillar. For the first time, they noticed the absence of war drums, the lack of marching boots. Instead, there was laughter, soft and uncertain, like something newly born. The sound felt alien in the shadow of so much ruin, yet its warmth stirred something deep within the champion's armor-clad chest. Perhaps survival was not merely endurance. Perhaps it was the fragile rediscovery of moments that made existence more than struggle. As the months passed, stories of their victory spread across nearby systems, growing in legend with each retelling. Pilgrims arrived, seeking to touch the scorched stones where heroes had fallen, to breathe the air of a place where destiny had writhed and reshaped itself. The champion grew uneasy with this reverence. They knew the truth, that victory was neither glorious nor clean. It was an aftermath, a scar left behind by choices that could never be unmade. Standing before a gathering of pilgrims, they removed their helm, allowing their tired, human face to be seen at last. "Do not worship us," they said softly. "Instead, remember those who did not return. They carried the burden so that we might stand here now." The crowd bowed, moved not by triumph, but by truth. In the solitude of dusk, the remembrancer approached once more, carrying the nearly completed chronicle. They asked the champion if any final words should close the record, a blessing, a warning, a promise. The champion looked across the horizon where two suns were setting, painting the sky in bruised colors. After a long silence, they said, "Ask the stars why they endure long after their light should fade. Ask the ruins why they still stand when they should have fallen. Ask yourself which of these you wish to become." The remembrancer nodded, knowing some questions were meant not to be answered, but to be carried like lanterns into the uncertain dark. The champion placed a gaunted hand on the chronicle. "Let this be our final page." And so the galaxy turned onward, as it always had, as it always would. The ruins softened under moss and time. The Legion faded into legend. The champion, now little more than a lone figure wandering the edges of forgotten worlds, became a whisper carried by starlight, a story told by remembrancers to children who would inherit a future forged in fire and silence. Somewhere in the void, a new storm gathered, but it no longer felt like an ending. It felt like another question waiting to be faced by those brave or foolish enough to rise. As the chronicle closed, its ink still fresh, its pages warmed by candlelight, the remembrancer whispered into the quiet, "Stand witness. Let their memory endure." If this tale moved you, honor it by liking, subscribing, sharing, and leaving your thoughts in the comments so that the echoes may never fade.